Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the latest installment of Ross Racing. If you've got the need for speed, this is the place to be.
Yeah, I like that.
I am your host, Matt Harrelson, alongside with me, of course, for the ride, Russell Parker. So we went down to Texas. We'll get to that here in just a second, but let's jump right into that. NASCAR headed down to the big state of Texas for a triple-header weekend between the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series. Hey, guess who? Kyle Busch dominated in Fort Worth in the lower series, but it was his Joe Gibbs teammate, Denny Hamlin, who took his second victory of the season in the Cup Series. So Russell Hamlin parted ways with his old crew chief at the conclusion of 2018. Seems that his new one's working out for him, isn't it?
Yeah, him and Mike Wheeler have a tremendous partnership going on with them right now. They won Daytona 500. Now they got their second win of the season here in Texas. I actually kind of thought that the Hamlin, the 11 team would be a pushover team this year. I didn't think they'd be very successful after Daytona. Anybody can win Daytona, but as you move forward, it's going to be a lot more difficult. But they got it done. They didn't dominate, but they ran up front pretty much for the whole part of the race, the 500-mile race. So they ran really well, finished very well as well. And I don't think, I didn't see this one coming. I really thought it'd be another Kyle Busch. Maybe it might be Keselowski or Logano had a chance there for a little while as well. But no, in the end, it ended up being Hamlin and the 11 team. They are on fire right now after that win.
I can't remember last week. Refresh my memory. Who did you predict would win this race?
Eric Almirola. I
That's
think
right.
he got a top 10 finish. But, he actually had a good, solid run as well. There was a lot of guys. Clint Boyer, Daniel Suarez. Those were your top three in addition to Hamlin. So you saw a lot of different names in the top five there. Even Jimmy Johnson got a top five. So, there's different guys moving up front. This wasn't a complete dominance by Penske and Gibbs. I think it's great that we're seeing that, especially at these mile-and-a-half tracks where you are used to seeing the same drivers win week in, week out. Now you're getting some different looks on it, and I'm glad for that.
Yeah, I knew you had picked someone a little off the beaten path, so I was trying to get you to remind me on that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We've been talking for the last few weeks about, gosh, already this season, is it going to be kind of like it was last year where it's just the same names week after week after week? Now, as you mentioned, Hamlin, we've said his name twice for the winner's circle, but not a name that's part of that big three, expanded to big 4 or 5, whatever you want to call it.
Hamlin was a driver who went winless last year, and now he's getting a refresher with his crew chief. Wheeler came down from the Xfinity Series. I believe he actually got a championship in that series. So stepping up from there, he's definitely shown that he knows how to get these cars moving. And I think this is going to work out very well for them in the future.
Definitely seems like it was a good match. Real quick, Texas Motor Speedway, the winner, I think I asked you this last week, gets the 6 shooters, right?
They did, yes.
I wonder if Hamlin was able to use those over the weekend.
I don't know, but I know he did a really good burnout as well.
Yeah.
He outdid Keselowski's at Martinsville, who had his pretty much on a single note going all the way down the whole front stretch. But Hamlin did a lot of nice donuts going across the start-finish line. It was really good.
I'm glad you bring that up. Not to get off too much of a tangent here, but when it comes to celebrations, is that good for NASCAR to watch guys do the burnouts, or are they always trying to kind of outdo each other week after week?
I hope that they are, because that's the best. That's one of the best parts about at the end of the races, especially on the front stretch and you're right there at it. People who want to buy them front row tickets, that's what they mostly buy them for, so they can get all that cloud of smoke right in their face at the end of the race, and their driver emerges from it. It's so cool to see that in person.
Yeah, and I know that for Checkers or Wreckers, one of the past weeks we talked about, are there enough personalities in NASCAR? I really feel like being able to come up with some kind of cool celebration is a way to show some creativity that you can't necessarily do in the sport, right?
Yeah, Kyle Larson, when he wins his races, he'll actually do his burnout with his steering wheel pulled off.
There you go.
So, and I believe Joe Logano, he's kind of started the trend where drivers start blowing out their tires on the burnout. So that's kind of been going on a little bit different from every driver, and I like that a lot.
I like that too. So, but speaking of last week, then we went over the new 2020 schedule for the Cup Series, pretty much from top to bottom.
Yeah.
The Xfinity and Truck Series' 2020 schedule was just revealed on Wednesday, which was both series concluding their seasons at ISM alongside the Cup Series. But the biggest standout for this schedule change is that the Xfinity Series is going to be returning to the paperclip in Martinsville for the first time in 25 years. And it's going to be during the same weekend as the Cup and Truck Series in the fall weekend schedule. So, Russell, what are your thoughts on this move?
Well, the last time that they were at Martinsville, Kevin Harvick won that race. He was actually still in the Busch Series.
Okay.
So seeing this big change, bringing back Martinsville is going to be awesome. especially with it being on the same weekend as the two other series, Cup and Truck. The paper cut is very small. Only the Cup team trucks can fit inside of the infield, and the Xfinity trucks have to park on the outside. Now you're going to see a whole 38 more out there as well, and it's going to be insane to see that come race weekend. I mean, that's going to be in October. It'll be a fall race, so it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday type of racing weekend. No night racing, from my understanding. They probably won't be doing that during the fall. But, man, 3 days of racing at Martinsville, and after being there for my first time just a few weeks ago, that makes me more excited to want to go to that race next year.
And even though Xfinity is a quote-unquote minor league, if you will, of NASCAR, we've also talked in the past about seeing more of these shorter tracks getting some more love. Yeah. I feel like I ask you this every week, but is this potentially inching us closer and closer to Rockingham getting something, even if it's Xfinity?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would love to see anything of racing come back to Rockingham, but I think Xfinity Truck Series would benefit very well come back to Rockingham, in addition to the Cup Series. But, seeing the younger guys get in their spotlight, I think it helps them out a lot. It helps the sport, helps that series grow, helps everyone grow. And I want to say something too about this race weekend, though. It's actually going to be the same. It's going to be the elimination race to find out who's going to be your championship for ISM.
Oh, okay.
So not only that, being your last race of the season before the championship race, I mean, you can't get any bigger than that for a triple header of a weekend like that in Martinsville.
A lot of implications going down in Virginia. So, speaking of changes, a big change that happened for the Gander Truck Series is just down the road from Martinsville. Also in Virginia, the Truck Series is going to be adding Richmond to its 2020 schedule. So, the last time the Truck Series raced at the 3/4 mile track was all the way back in 2005. You were like 10 years old. What's your take on this, though?
I like this. I cannot recall a time that trucks ran at Richmond.
Exactly.
And so that's obviously. But I think the Truck Series is going to benefit from that one as well. I know Martinsville track getting added, another short track being added. This is NASCAR listening to their fans saying, hey, you guys want more short track racing? We're going to give it to you. And, they're listening. It's something that I believe the Truck Series CEO has been wanting to do for a while anyways, go back to Richmond. So to see it moving forward, seeing NASCAR make these big plays like this, it's going to help. I think it's going to help them out in the long run. And I'm not sure when this race day is set, but I know it's going to probably be alongside maybe the Cup Series. Hopefully it'll be late in the season, so we don't have to see Kyle Busch or any other Cup drivers racing in this race.
Right.
But I think it's going to be really beneficial to the Truck Series to go back to Richmond.
When it comes to these national sports organizations, sometimes they decide to make changes just to make them, to justify someone's job. Sometimes fans say, we want this, and they get completely ignored. So it's great to see a big-time sport like NASCAR listen to their fans and then react and do exactly what they want to see, because that's how you keep butts in the seats, right?
Certainly.
All right, so let's jump back to the Cup Series, and let's talk about Hendrick Motorsports, who had one of their best showings in a while. You mentioned Jimmy Johnson earlier. He finished the highest in 5th place. William Byron, a name we don't usually talk about a whole lot, was right behind him. Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman both finished just outside the top 10, but were running well throughout the day. So we keep asking if Hendrick's ever going to have a comeback. Are we close to seeing that?
Yeah, I think so. You look forward to the next couple of races that's coming up. Bristol is the next one. I think you're going to see Chase Elliott and maybe Alex Bowman kind of stand out from that race there. Jimmy Johnson finally getting a top 5 finish. He hasn't had a successful race since the inaugural race of the season, which was the Clash, which doesn't even mean much.
Right.
So to see him get back on the track and to have a solid run, I think everyone wants to see Jimmy Johnson do well. Everybody used to be a hater of Jimmy Johnson. I think everybody kind of has grown on to him now. He's the veteran of the sport, 7-time champion. People want to see him do better, and it's great that he is doing better. And it's great to see the younger drivers doing better. Of course, some of them finished on the outside of the top 10, but you look at Jimmy Johnson, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, William Byron, those 4 drivers are going to carry Hendrick for a long time. Well, Jimmy Johnson already carried him, but the other 3 will carry them for a long time. And to build on those drivers, it's going to help them out in the long run as well. Because right now, they're rebuilding. You can call this a rebuilding season or rebuilding series of seasons, I guess you could say, for the Hendrick garage.
So, talking about Jimmy Johnson, let's delve into this for just a moment. So, surefire Hall of Famer. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Is this his last season? Has he announced that yet?
He has not announced that yet.
Which way do you think maybe right now he's leaning? I know it's tough to speculate, but
Yeah, I think I can't remember, but off the top of my head, I believe he's coming up on either 20 or 25th year of being in the Cup Series.
Wow.
So I'm thinking he'll probably round that out, a solid number there, and then call it quits, if you will. I don't know if he'll actually take himself completely out of the sport. I'm sure he'll do some behind the scenes stuff. He's probably already doing that now. He's probably kind of transitioning that, if you will. But he's still got sponsorships coming on for him. He's got Ally as his sponsorship, who pretty much jumped on as soon as Lowe's left in a way. So I think Jimmy's fine, and I think he's kind of racing until he's ready to stop, and it's not really up. I guess it will be up to Hendrick, but I think Hendrick's letting it be up to Jimmy.
Sure. And whether he retires after this season or continues on a couple more, what do you think his ceiling is for this 2019 year?
I think he'll get a win, and I like to see him advance through the playoffs. I think he'll get through the first round or two. But really, I don't know if he's going to have what it takes to get all the way through it and get to the Final Four. I think the one you're going to be looking at is Chase Elliott, who is probably the leader right now among those three drivers, not outside of Jimmy. He's probably kind of looking – you probably look at him as a Jeff Gordon, if you will, in that Hendrick, because when Jeff Gordon came in, he wasn't really the – he actually had to become the leader of that group. And now I think Chase Elliott has kind of fallen into that as well. So you're going to see Chase Elliott probably stand out a little bit more than the other two. And moving forward, I think Chase Elliott's probably going to be in your championship four as well.
And I would agree with you on that. However, when it comes to the Hendrick Motorsports team, when you've got Jimmy and the other guys, William Byron, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, he's obviously the veteran of that group, has a lot more experience, a lot more victories. How important is it to have a guy like that on your team if you're some of these younger guys to learn from?
Exactly. You learn pretty much everything you can. I'm sure he's there with them every single week after the race and before the race and probably even during the race time. He's giving them advice. He's always letting them know what's going on, how you handle this. There's so much going on behind the scenes that I'm sure he's giving them tips on. And I don't think you can have a better teacher than anyone else in this organization right now. I think, and of course, Jeff Gordon still hangs on behind the scenes as well. So you got two of those drivers doing behind the scenes work for these younger guys and teaching them, and they're learning from it. I think you just benefit so well of being a part of it, the Hendrick group.
Yeah, two of the best in the biz to learn from.
Yeah.
Last question about Jimmy before we move on. Do you ever foresee him going kind of the Tony Stewart route where he eventually takes on a ownership role? You think that's something he might be interested in?
I don't think so, because I think Jeff Gordon's probably the one who's lined up to take over Hendrick Motorsports when it's over with. It's kind of been set out already. Jimmy Johnson, I'm not sure if he'll actually take on his own team, maybe in the Truck Series or maybe the Xfinity Series. Of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. did go to the Xfinity Series with Junior Motorsports. Maybe you'll see Jimmy do the same thing. I don't know. Maybe he'll continue to take a back seat in the organization to kind of help together and just continue to build on that he's been doing. Or maybe he just goes off in the sunset and retires it out.
I was going to say, once he retires, if he decides to do nothing else, I think it was a worthwhile career. So, all right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that throughout his career, Jimmy Johnson has always been in the groove. But let's move on over to drivers in the groove. Now, Russell, 3 series, 3 drivers. Who impressed you the most down in Texas?
I'm going to start off with the Truck Series. Tyler Akram is a driver you've probably never heard of.
Sure
He's
haven't.
only gotten 2 races this season in the Truck Series, and the second one was at Texas, and he scored a top 10 finish, 6th place, started 6th, finished 6th. Excellent run in that car. I think he was driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports, but still a guy you never heard of, still making a big imprint there, showing that no names can make a big name if they have the right equipment. So hats off to Tyler. Xfinity Series, another name you probably hear is Earnhardt, but it's Jeffrey Earnhardt.
Okay. They just keep pumping out Earnhardts, don't they?
That is the grandson of Dale Earnhardt Sr., the son of Kerry Earnhardt.
Okay.
He actually started 14th. He finished 8th. Solid run by him. I believe he was actually racing a Joe Gibbs Toyota. You can kind of see the pattern here a little bit. But he had a fantastic day as well. For the Cup Series, Daniel Suarez, who was a former Joe Gibbs driver, now for Stuart Haas, he started 4th, finished 3rd. Awesome race day for him. 3rd place, I don't think you can have. I think he's on his way to getting a victory this season.
All right, sounds good. Those are your drivers in the groove down in the Lone Star State. Up next, one of our newest segments we're calling the Rock Block. Of course, brought to you by The Rock, Rockingham Speedway, Dragway, RockinghamDragway.com. Going on this weekend is going to be the Modern Hemi Shootout. That's going to be beginning on Friday, but on Saturday, that's when all the big time racing begins. If you're interested in going out there, gates will open at 8 o'clock. Racing is going to start at 10 a.m. If you're interested in getting in there and taking your car out there, mine won't do. I don't know if yours will, but the ones
my
that
dad's
do,
truck might.
there you go. The ones that do, it's $120, and that gets 2 MSHS Classics in there as well. Of course, if you want to get tickets, you want to get a little more information, head on over to the RockinghamDragway.com.
And hopefully the rain will hold off for
Yes.
Friday, because I know rain's in the forecast. But if it holds off, man, you got 2 days of racing.
Matter of fact, there's been a couple of weekends, including this past Sunday out at the Dragway, where they had to cancel a couple of races. So fingers crossed.
Reschedule. They do
Sure.
reschedule, which is awesome.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think last weekend's was a reschedule
Yeah,
from
it was.
like 2 weeks before that. So hopefully they'll be able to finish that up.
Hell yeah.
But again, always something going on literally every weekend over at the Rockingham Dragway. So make sure to head on out there when you get some time. But if you didn't get enough short track racing from Martinsville, then you're in luck for this week as the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series travels to Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee. So we're going from here to really big here. We won't be seeing the trucks race again until May 3rd at Dover, but the world's fastest half mile sets up for a 500-lap race in the Cup Series on Sunday. Russell, what do you expect to see out of the last great Coliseum?
Well, I mean, you can't. I mean, Bristol is one of the crown jewels of NASCAR. It's just the outside, the atmosphere of that place is really spectacular. It does look like a Coliseum on the outside.
Yeah.
You get inside of it, it's like I guess the way I put it is if you go into an arena, but without the roof on it, because there's seats all around, and you got the show right there in the middle.
Would this be appropriate? Imagine going to a bullfighting arena, but there's a asphalt track around the inside and
I
stuff.
like that concept. I've heard people say when they get on the inside, the infield, it's like a cereal bowl of cars going around.
Yes,
you all the
I've also
time.
heard if you take a cereal bowl, it looks like that as well. Yes.
So, I expect this race to be, for both races, actually kind of a Kyle Busch show. I don't want it to be.
What do you know?
But, I mean, Kyle Busch has been on another level at this track. Darrell Waltrip, probably one of the biggest names to come out of Bristol until Kyle Busch kind of took it away from him, if you will. So Kyle Busch, I expect him to be up front, but I wouldn't count on Kevin Harvick. I think he's going to be a big factor in this race as well. He has had plenty of success here before. Also, Kyle Larson, who has come very close to winning this race before in the past, I think he's going to be another threat to this race.
All right, well, we'll get your prediction going on in the Volunteer State here in just a moment, but let's play America's favorite racing game, Checkers or Wreckers. Let's line them up 1 through 5. Number 1, NASCAR should do away with group qualifying and go back to single car qualifying.
As much as I love group qualifying, I'm going to say checkers. I think the single car qualifying is basically showing you, qualifying is about who has the fastest car.
Right.
With group qualifying, you have the drafting playing because you have multiple cars on the track. It doesn't really play into the fact that you have the fastest car because you could be the first car in line of his draft, but the car that's first in the back of that line of cars is going to be the one who gets the best score because that's just how the draft works. Fastest car behind you, pushing because you have no air in front of that car. So it doesn't really seem like it's a fair concept. It's entertaining. I'll give it that. It's very entertaining to watch, especially recently on the mile and a half where they all sit on pit road until like the last minute and go out on track and make their lap. And some of them may not get it, some of them will. It's fun to watch, but I don't think it really makes the concept of what qualifying should be, which is one car on the track, 1 to 2 laps you get to try and get the fastest time, and that's it. Maybe they can keep it at the short tracks because the draft does not play a factor. But at the mile and a half tracks now, we're having drafting come into play. They should probably go back to one lap, two lap, single car qualifying.
You know, for entertainment purposes, group qualifying sounds more exciting, but common sense should prevail here, right? And it should just be single car. I mean, like you said, that should be how you find out who has the fastest car, and that's the whole point to begin with.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, all right, number 2, the Ellerbe Lions Club right here in Richmond County should bring back dirt racing at their racetrack. Checkers or Wreckers?
Absolutely checkers, man. I know we've had a lot of talk recently from up there in Ellerbe about the fireworks show, but it got me thinking about the racetrack up there. And I know that they're looking at bringing racing back, and I would love to see racing back. If you got a dirt track racing series out there, I don't know if it's whether it's lawnmowers or go-karts or something come to Ellerby because I think you're going to have a great crowd show up there, and they're looking for that type of racing up there.
And, up until I believe it was just last year, the Lions Den was still hosting lawnmower racing. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that right now they're on a hiatus. I'm not quite sure as to why. I don't want to speculate. I'm also not quite sure as to how long that hiatus will last. But I'm with you. It's terrible to just let that track just sit there and wilt away, isn't it?
It is. I would. A lot of people were talking recently about having a dirt track built at the Speedway, and it'll be a bigger dirt track that can host something else that's like a bigger national series. But Ellerby, they got that track out there. They should utilize it. Take as much advantage of that as possible, and that could bring in a good income for that small town up there and make it a little bit bigger.
And it doesn't just have to be lawnmower. Like you said, go-karts could race there. I mean, what else could you have there? Motorbikes, is it big enough for that?
I think motorbikes probably works. Dirt bikes or something. Anything that's small enough to fill on a track. I can't remember the size of the track. But something small would definitely work.
I do want to mention something. I saw online, the internet can be a wonderful place sometimes. The scooters that you can take like in Walmart, grocery stores, that sort of thing, people are souping those up now and racing them. I wouldn't mind seeing that on the dirt track at the Lions Den.
Hey.
All right, number 3 on Checkers or Wreckers, Dale Earnhardt Jr. said that Daytona should be the season finale for NASCAR. What do you think?
Whew. That is a big request that he has for that, and I like the idea of it. But
Is he talking like the final? Okay,
yep.
I was going to say because I thought the new schedule already has Daytona moving to this regular season finale.
Yeah, for the regular season, but for the final race of the entire season, Daytona start the race. The start season with Daytona, finish out with Daytona. I like the idea of that. The problem is I don't know if people who go to Daytona will be in for that, for having two races that are that close together. I mean, you're thinking about 2 months or 3 months difference there.
Yeah, ending in what? November? Starting back in February?
Yeah. And not only that, but I think the championship race should probably be somewhere where you can draw a crowd to it, because Daytona's probably going to draw a crowd anyways, no matter where it's on the date. I think the final is fine where it's at for ISM, but it should continue to rotate it anyways. I would like to see it maybe 1 year. Probably not right now. I want to see some other tracks take over that final race of the season and put some true tests to it. I know a lot of people don't like the idea of it because plate racing comes into play on that, and you could have a winner who didn't. You might argue probably didn't earn it because he had the draft working for him, or the other three guys got caught in the big one that had nothing to do with them.
Right.
And I get what you're saying on that, but I think that's the risk you take when you go to tracks like that.
Let me float something else out to you to think about. NASCAR has to be the only sport where their Super Bowl, if you will, is at the beginning of the season. Would they ever, you think, entertain the idea of getting rid of the first race and making Daytona the championship race?
Absolutely not. I don't think you'll ever see Daytona's first date on the NASCAR schedule ever be moved away from that.
Is that what sets NASCAR apart from other sports?
I think it does. It's kind of like like you said, it's a Super Bowl of stock car racing. You don't want to move it around like that. You don't want to, especially move up someone's. Everybody makes their vacations around this race weekend. Actually, couple weekends. It's a whole weekend or 2 weekends just for that race, and I don't think you want to move that around too much.
But you wouldn't be losing a race. You'd still have 2 races in Daytona. You would just end the regular season and then end it with the championship. Perhaps maybe that's too close. But it's not like you're just scrapping Daytona altogether. And, I mean, yes, NASCAR has started with Daytona since what seems like the dawn of time, but wouldn't people eventually just get used to it?
I don't think nobody has. They still sell out every Daytona.
Well, of course they do. Of course they do. But if you made the championship in Daytona the one that decides everything, don't you think people would still get involved and they wouldn't boycott it, would they?
No, I mean, but here's the thing. I still think that Daytona will. If you have 2 races for Daytona, you'll still have those 2 races sell very well for that track, no matter where they are on the schedule.
That's my point, though.
But people will rather still have it be at the top of the season. And I think you should give the opportunity of the last race of the season to another track who probably doesn't do as well in attendance, but they can do better if they have that incentive. Say, okay, well, this is the last race of the season, so this is a good reason to go to this race.
All right, let me ask you this. Ending this year, I believe it is, Miami will be the championship race, right?
ISM in Phoenix.
ISM in Phoenix, okay. Then it moves to where next year?
Oh, no, this year it'll be Homestead. Next year's ISM.
Then it's Phoenix. if it's not Daytona or one of those two can be included, who should have the championship race? Who has the facilities to be able to handle all that and has like the classic play? Indy maybe. I mean, what's another track that could hold that? If you could make a wish list.
Well, number one would be Rockin' now.
Okay. Besides Rockin',
number
someone
two,
who actually has racing right now.
I would like to see Bristol hold it.
Okay.
Hold it. I think that they could fill out that all those grandstands that surrounds the entire track. That would just be a massive championship race. I like the idea of Darlington doing it as well. Let me think.
What about Texas?
I don't know about Texas.
I'm just thinking like it's big track, big stadium, big screen.
Yeah, and you can probably make a case for Charlotte can do the same thing.
Charlotte's
already got 600.
They may be
all-star
oversaturated
race.
though a little bit.
Yeah. I like the idea of it staying in the southeast of the championship race. But I have no problem with it going to the West Coast once every few years and the Northeast. Maybe even the road course could finish. Watkins Glen, why not?
I mean, why not rotate it?
Yeah,
I think we talked about
for.
that in the past. So, all right, we got a little bit off subject there, but checkers of records number 4. NASCAR lacks rivalries.
I think they do have plenty of them, but they're not big enough. So this is kind of a blue flag with a yellow stripe on it, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. But I think that you got some of there. Penske versus Gibbs has been pretty big recently. Kyle Busch versus Joe Logano. Brad Keselowski involved with that one too, and Kevin Harvick. Those guys kind of have a clash together quite a bit. But they're not really taken to a level where people are like siding. I mean, people are siding with one and the other, but they're not really. When they go through the races, they're not really.
Yeah.
I didn't see nobody really arguing with one another about who was
Right.
who was the better driver. Everybody's a little too respectful of that.
Let me ask you this: What was everything you just mentioned? What was the last great rivalry? Gordon Earnhardt? Is it that far back?
I would say Gordon Earnhardt is probably the biggest one.
Because people definitely took sides back then.
They did, and they still do.
Yeah, they did.
I really don't know. You could probably make a case that everybody's kind of going either Kyle Busch and everybody else.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, there's not really a big rivalry out there that's really top of my head.
Let me ask you this. When it came to that, it was like, quote unquote, Earnhardt was the good guy, Gordon was the bad guy. Well, obviously, Kyle Busch is now the villain of the sport. Do we need more villains in NASCAR?
Certainly. I think it makes it more interesting to watch.
Wouldn't that be a way to expedite rivalries?
Yeah, I think you need more guys who are not afraid to go out and say what they got to say on the
Be
microphone.
brash a little bit.
Yeah. Kevin Harvick, he's a guy who will have no problem saying what he's got to say. Kyle Busch is one of his drivers. Brad Keselowski will say some stuff, but he's not completely out there on it. Maybe he should be a little bit more. They call him Bad Brad, though, so he does have that going for him.
They need some new nicknames. Bad Brad. All right, so let's finish up here with Checkers of Records. Number 5, Harrison Burton is set to drive for Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series for 8 races this season.
I'm going to say Checkers. He's had a very successful season so far down with Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series, and to see him moving along the ranks of Joe Gibbs, I think is going to work out very well for him in the future. 8 races this season is going to be plenty for him. I'm not sure what tracks they are, but plenty of experience going on for him. He's probably going to be moving up to the Xfinity Series full-time next year.
All right, that's going to do it for Checkers or Wreckers. Now, before we end the show, who you got? Who's going to be the 10 you see in 10 I see?
Oh, man. Well, it's got to be, like I said, it's already been between Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick. I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick on this one.
Okay.
I think he's finally going to get his first victory of the season.
Let me write that down.
Which is really weird to say that he's going to get his first victory this season. He hasn't had one yet out of 7 races already. So hopefully for him, he'll get it at number 8.
All right. I would like to make a prediction of my own, but I'm terrible at it.
Just go with Kyle Busch. You can't go wrong with it.
You know what? I'll take chalk. I'll go with Kyle Busch. You're absolutely right. At some level this weekend, it seems like he just wins and wins and wins. By the way, real quick before we go, Kyle Busch. We talked about him a lot all season. How did he end up doing in Texas? I don't think we mentioned that.
I don't know if he actually got the top 10. I think he finished 19th. I'm not quite sure.
So a little chink in the armor there.
He did run up front, but I think he has some issues again on pit road, and that's been something that he's had a big story. That's his storyline this season is having pit road issues. But I mean, with the wins, you can't really say that's that bad.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely be back next week. Let you know if or when Kyle Busch picked up another victory.
He
As
will next Xfinity Series. I'll make that.
As he marches quickly past 200 overall victories. But that's going to do it for another edition of Ross Racing. Of course, always brought to you by the Rockingham Dragway. If you want more information, buying tickets, all that good stuff, head on over to the RockinghamDragway.com. I am Matt Harrelson. That's Russell Parker. We'll see you right back here on the track for more Ross Racing.